Welcome, stakeholders. I'd like to take this opportunity to review the closed procurements with you specific to the Uniworld Alliance Prototype Project. This project integration management process involves finalizing all required activities to formally complete this project. This process allows me to present the lessons learned, the formal ending of the project work, and the release of organization resources to pursue new endeavors. The key benefit of the closed procurement process is that it documents agreements and related records for future reference. The key areas I will be discussing are the inputs, which include the project management plan and the procurement documents, the tools and techniques, which include the procurement audits, procurement negotiations, and records management system, and finally the outputs, which included the closed procurements and organization process asset updates. The purpose of this project was to manage the implementation of an e-commerce equipped website to support Uniworld to regain its global market dominance. To close the project management plan, my goal was to develop a prototype website within a $50,000 budget within 11 weeks with no more than 12 known defects. The website was to demonstrate handling a peak load of 2,000 hits per hour without appreciable degradation in system response. The result was to provide Uniworld with a prototype composed of hardware and software required in establishing an e-commerce website capable of demonstrating the feasibility of developing a fully functional site capable of taking product orders and generating product fulfillment. The deliverables included a demonstration website, site documentation, and recommended product architecture. This slide shows each of the required tasks, the description, when the task was actually completed, the planned hours, and the actual hours it took to complete. 80 hours were planned for the systems design, which was task 1, and it was completed in 71 hours on time in week 1. Task 2 was part of the network design and implementation path, which was to be completed in 240 hours. However, this task took 281 hours to complete, and it was completed in week 7 instead of week 3 to 5. It was delayed due to the rescheduling of the design approval meeting. By week 7, staff absences were also impacting the project. The software implementation took 254 hours instead of 240 hours and was completed in week 10 instead of week 6 to 8. The product documentation task was completed on time in week 6, but did take 7 extra hours. By week 6, the product defect level was not good. The systems integration task was completed 2 weeks late and took 12 extra hours. The customer acceptance test task was also completed 2 weeks late and took 13 extra hours. The documentation review task was completed on time in week 6 in 12.5 extra hours. Things began to improve in week 8. Now let's look at the tools and techniques used in this project. The procurement audit is meant to identify the successes and failures that warrant recognition in the project. This reviews aspects of the project scope that could be improved and which aspects were handled well. For example, staff absences that were occurring in week 7 and onwards could be improved. To minimize staff absences, individual meetings were held with select members. Ensuring project or design approval meetings included the right audience or resources was another lesson learned to avoid delays in the project. Procurement negotiations were also completed, and the budget was charged for materials used in week 7. The objective of negotiation is to obtain a fair and reasonable price and to develop good relationships. It was important to ensure the responsibilities, legal obligations, the technical approaches, contract financing, schedule, and payments were understood. A records management system is usually the last thing on a project manager's mind, but it is an integral part and is used by the project manager to manage contract and procurement documentation and records. By using the systems and software resources, the team was able to record the activities and events and create documents, and we followed the guidelines for recording and documenting. Finally, running the process allowed us to develop the necessary outputs, which included the documentation files and records. This step allowed the team to find required information when it was needed. It protected the project data from unauthorized access and saved time and effort while reducing costs. The closed procurement aspect also involves outputs. This section is the formal written notice that the contract has been completed. Organization process assets updates involve providing the complete set of contract documentation, including the closed contract. These updates can also include the acceptance of the deliverables and include the lessons learned documentation. This was provided in week 13 of the project, and B.D. Smith personally thanked the team for the job they did in completing this project. The final team member was also released in week 13. In the final documentation that was provided, the information pertaining to the budget along with the project management, Gantt, quality, and earned value graphs were also provided. The goal was to develop a prototype website within a $50,000 budget within 11 weeks. This project was actually completed using a budget of $44,776, but in 13 weeks. The Gantt chart is a visual way to identify the essential tasks. They provide a visual of what's going on in the project and allows improved communication of the project plan to the team. It also prevents resource overload and tracks the progress of the project. For this project, this is a visual of which week each of the main tasks were completed. Delivering quality is just as important as meeting cost and schedule. If the project goals are not met as per the project charter, this will impact the project. These goals are measured by the maximum number of open defects, and in this project, this includes software and hardware defects, and when added together are the project defects. The quality chart for the final run is shown here. The chart shows that the software defects continue to rise up to week 9 and then began to decrease. Hardware defects were leveling out at week 6 to 9 and then began to decrease. Overall, the project defect peaked just after week 9 and then slowly began to get resolved. The defects certainly did exceed the target, however, they were rectified and quality did improve. The earned value chart is shown here. It shows that the trending is up, which is a good result. A downward trending pattern is a bad indicator for the project. The key stakeholders were to be invited to the design approval meeting. However, the invite was sent out to the whole group. This impacted the meetings, and a second meeting had to be held, which delayed the project by a couple of days. The delay led to a delay in Task 2. Key learning here is to ensure the appropriate audience is at meetings. Status reports were not sent in a suitable time frame. It's important to keep the customer informed of where we are on a regular basis. Project defects were increasing, which was impacting the quality problems. Individual conferences and team conferences to discuss attendance and expectations to support team members were well received. Productivity expectations were also discussed at team conferences, which proved to be beneficial to the project and the deliverables. Other lessons learned included holding regular meetings to discuss issues, risks, as well as project status and productivity. Members were released from the project to avoid unnecessary labor costs. It's important to include team members on meetings as it gives the stakeholders a chance to meet the real workers and gives them a chance to see what management is looking for on the project status. They can also provide valuable feedback and are available for backup questions that I was unable to answer sufficiently. It's important to help the team members grow their leadership skills. It's also important to have a plan to reduce costs and engage the project team members for their ideas for reducing those costs. Frequent review and referral back to the project charter was also key to ensure the project is on task. Other learnings included accepting help when it's offered and paying attention to quality. To officially have this project come to an end, the appropriate signatures are now required. Thank you for the opportunity to gain valuable experience while working through this project. I believe the expectations of this project have been met and the project is now officially closed.